Well, with the rising concern around the Delta variant, COVID-19 will still be very much present in the classroom this fall.
Yeah, I sat down with 3 superintendents from local school districts from around the area earlier this week. We discussed the effects the pandemic continues to have in schools as classes begin next week. And good morning, everyone. We're talking back to school and COVID-19 in the classroom this morning. I'm joined by 3 superintendents from different school districts around our viewing area. To the right of me here is Jason Alexander of Beatrix Public Schools. To the left, Joshua McDowell of Crete Public Schools and Josh Fields of Seward Public Schools. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So I wanted to start simple here. Going back to the last 18 months or so, what's been kind of the number one thing that's kept you up at night while you're navigating this pandemic and putting together your plans for back to school? Jason, I'll start with you.
All right. Well, I would say probably the overall concern for student and staff health and well-being. I think the delicate balancing act between mitigating the spread of the virus and the appropriate steps necessary to do that, while at the same time trying to keep the focus on education, which is what we all are concerned with, and making sure kids are learning.
Josh?
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I think it was taking in all of that information that was just flooding us so quickly, trying to process that and then make the best decisions for our staff, our students, and our community. Because as Jason talked about, trying to keep the focus on education, but education is more than reading and math. It's about everything else that goes into it, socialization, kids being able to interact, and how do we balance that while keeping everyone safe?
How do you keep those parents kind of calm too as well, Josh?
Yeah, that can be difficult at times, but it is about doing what you think is best, and really that local control we think is very important, but also continuing to have those conversations with our health department and state officials to make sure that information that comes out so quickly of making those best decisions that you can with the information that you have. But we all 3 of us, we feel very fortunate, the state of Nebraska as a whole, but being able to have kids last year in class, in session, was a huge thing. And we know that there's many districts across the nation that maybe are starting for the first time this fall with kids in person. And so we really feel like we've got a leg up on a lot of people, but we know that we still have a lot of challenges ahead as we continue to work through the pandemic.
I was talking off camera with you guys before. We were hoping this would be done by this point this year, but here we are again. Going on to here, you all have made your back to school policies, and your parents of these school districts, you can find each of those on your individual website for each of your school districts. Many of them are like the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department, where you're color coded depending on the number of cases. So Josh, I'll start with you here. What determines an outbreak? How many cases determines an outbreak in your school?
So we're really fortunate at Crete Public Schools to have a great relationship with Public Health Solutions, our local health department, and our Board of Education, along with our administrative team, have not put that exact number on this is going to be what we consider an outbreak and when we start to implement maybe stricter measures. What we're really looking at is just cases, are there outbreaks in individual buildings, and then just continuing to work with the health department, much like we would in the past around we've always had conversations around flu season, for example. If there's a spike in flu cases, we're working with the health department to determine what are our best next steps. And that's our plan going forward with COVID.
Is that kind of the same deal with you, Josh?
Absolutely, and it's, we have Four Corners Health that we have a great relationship with, but it's also, we sometimes think everything is so black and white because there's so many different situations and things that can happen throughout the school year. So it might be what if we have an outbreak on a team? A sports team may look different than within a classroom, and is it a grade level? Is it a specific whole school? And so those things we'll look at very carefully of what is the best solution at the time. And I think sometimes when you say this is going to be the exact number, you pigeon yourself into a corner a little bit, because there might be like I said, each situation has some different things that may occur.
Jason, what would it take to bring back online classes again? Hopefully we don't have to get to that point, but what would it take?
I think it would take a pretty severe outbreak of cases within a district, and each school district is going to be different one from the other depending on their circumstances. And so, I think when we look at the overall picture, the more population that you have, the more chances of a more serious outbreak you have, because the spread is just going to be that much quicker. So I think there's no magic number probably per se that would bring back online learning, but it would take a serious outbreak, I think, in any institution for that to happen.